Please welcome to the stage Molly and Fairley.
Some years ago, I went to see a guru from India, and he was a very wise man, and he spoke to me about the type of work he did in India. And what he did was, he's still doing it, he runs a centre for people who are starving. And I was fascinated by this because I said to him, do they really come? He said, yes, we have a big soup kitchen, they have not enough to eat. And he said to me, what do you do, Molly Ann? I said, well, it's interesting because I work with weight loss, spiritual weight loss. He said, did you realise, he said, that to the extent the East is starving in the world, there has to be a balance in the West to counterbalance those two energies. And I thought about this, and I never really thought about this before. Imagine what's going on at the moment. People are starving left, right and centre in the East, but the West has become so greedy that we are all becoming ill from obesity and stuff like that, and all the diseases and illnesses that go with it. Yeah. And he said to me, Molly, he said, millions of people are dying. He said, and this is going to get worse, and you're going to see an epidemic of diabetes, heart attacks, and that kind of stuff in the West. Fascinating. Now, I thought about this a great deal, and I was very interested in doing something about it properly. And so I started to research about dieting, weight loss management, and the rest of it. And I came up with the answers that, and this is from market research in America, Allied Market Research. The value of the weight loss products at the moment is £139 billion. That's not dollars, that's pounds, 139. But what's awful about this is, in the year 2027, it's set to go up to £214 billion. That's massive, isn't it? And do you know why I'm disturbed by this? I'm disturbed because you are being exploited. Do you realise that? It's very, very important that you do get this, because there are massive amount of weight loss products coming onto the market. But have you ever noticed that nobody seems to be getting there? The amount of people that are obese now, overweight is bigger, and even children are overweight. Yeah? Even children in countries like China and India, they were really skinny before. They're not skinny anymore, are they? So only 5%, apparently, according to all the research, of all diets work. And then we don't know, do we, whether or not the woman dieting, because I deal mainly with women. I'm talking to you as a woman, yeah, not necessarily as a man today. How many of you actually stay slim and keep it off for life? That's probably even a lot less, yeah. And you know, I was with a friend last week in a restaurant. There were people sitting next to me, and they were eating copious amounts of food. It was unbelievable, yeah. And she's always been slim, and she's always been that side of the fence. And she said to me, oh, look at them. She said, the trouble with them is they don't use their willpower. And I said, you know what, Karen? You don't really understand. I've worked with weight loss with people for a long period of time. It isn't about willpower. If it was about willpower, people like Oprah Winfrey, who's so powerful, wouldn't have had that struggle all her life. And she's only keeping it off now because she's the head of Weight Watchers. So she's got to, hasn't she? And then you look at people like Dawn French. She's put it all back on again this year. Yeah. So what is going on here? When I was young, and I can hear you saying, oh, here we go. Old people always say this to me. Well, anyway, when I was young, and I will tell you now, I'm 74, so you can suss it out in your mind, yeah? We used to eat what on earth we wanted. We used to eat sugar sandwiches, jam sandwiches, and if you were lucky enough to have a family that could afford a roast on a Sunday, you ate big doorstops, they were called, big white blocks of bread, and in the middle was beef fat. Yeah, imagine. But we didn't get fat. we stayed thin. So the thing about it is, why is that? This is the question I'm asking you today. What has happened between then and now that is making the world a fatter place? Yeah. Some years ago, I went to America. My husband, my then husband, was being headhunted for a top job over in New York. And I didn't really want to go, so I was ready to make any excuse to get out of that, but nevertheless we went. And we stayed at the United Nations Hotel, very posh, and my daughter, Caroline, she was about 8 or 9, she went out with her baseball gloves, a baseball hat, the whole gear she bought since we arrived, out into the streets. And she was inviting all these kids into the hotel, right? And they ran up this enormous bill, $400. I'm not kidding. In those days, $400, we're talking about, what, 35, 36 years ago? It was a lot of money. I don't know how much it'd be now, but it was a lot. And we weren't very pleased. But these kids, these little American kids, were all knocking back these enormous sandwiches. They were, I'd never seen anything like it. Club sandwiches, we didn't have those in England, so it's the first time I'd ever seen it, yeah. And then we went to the beach, Long Island, yeah. And on the beach, the people have a massive, great big, I got it by this time. In America, things are bigger, yeah. Big ghetto blasters, huge ghetto blasters. And then I saw people lying on the beach and they'd got these kind of big collars on, made of cardboard, I think. They made them at home. And they'd covered them with foil so they could get double and triple portions of sun on their face. So, yes, all very fascinating. I was a bit taken back by all this. But I can tell you, the one thing that struck me more than anything else was the women were all wearing their husband's shorts. I thought, what's going on here then? This is weird. So I plucked up the courage to go up to one of these women and I said, do you mind me asking? It's a very personal question. I said, but why are you all walking around in men's shorts? And she said, because there aren't any in the shops big enough to fit us. Right? So the thing is, at that time, we're talking about 35 years ago, we were thin. We were thin in Europe and we were thin in England. And if you were overweight, somebody pointed something out to you and you felt ashamed and you got the weight off. It wasn't acceptable, okay? Only 35 years ago, yeah. And 4 or 5 years ago, I went back to the States, back to New York, but this time I was working in my own right, and I saw them eating maple syrup, waffles and cream for breakfast. And somebody who came to me about weight loss, she said, oh, Molly, I'm on this smoothie, it's really, really healthy. I said, oh, what is it? She said, banana, cream and fruit. I thought, right, okay, I don't think they've quite got the idea here, but I won't say anything at this point. Didn't want to sort of dampen her spirit. And then I think it was after the theatre, we went to a restaurant, and in the restaurant, all these people obviously eating, but over to my left-hand side, there was 4 people on a table, about as far as I am from you now, sitting right in front of the toilet, was around the back of them. And I was watching them, and then all of a sudden the waiter came round, he put some really weird gadgets on the table, big metal jobs, yeah, and clips there, there, and there, and there. And I thought, I wonder what's coming out. I wonder what's kind of, perhaps it's going to be this special brulee or souffle or something you burn. I don't know. Anyway, about 5 minutes later, no, what came out was the biggest pizzas I have ever seen in my life, and I'm really not exaggerating. They were like that, absolutely huge. And I think, good God, what the hell's going on around here? This is unbelievable, yeah? Only 4 people sitting at the table, and each person was going to dig in and eat that entire pizza, according to what I was thinking anyway. And they did. And I sneaked up behind the table, pretending to go to the toilet, yeah, to see what was going on. And those pizzas were piled high with all kinds of ingredients. Now, I'm not saying all these things to knock Americans. Seriously, I'm not. Because some absolutely fantastic stuff comes out of that country, as we all know. And over on the other side of the coast, west side, they're up to here, aren't they, in health stuff, etc., etc. But the thing about it is, it wasn't happening here until very recently. And I can understand Americans because they've got big roads, they've got big cars, they've got big supermarkets, walk-in fridges, everything's big. So why wouldn't your food be big? It makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. And they don't come out of America very often, so they don't see what we're doing here. Yeah. So you might be saying to me, well, Molly, you've said all these things, but we don't really know at this point, I don't know, why you're even talking about weight loss, because look, size 8, yeah? Have a good look, yeah? Size 8, been size 8 since the age of 17, and I'm not telling you to make you think that I am showing off. I'm telling you because I've been bloody lucky. That's the only way, with a high metabolism, yeah? But you see, the reason I am so interested in weight loss is, it was a different story from my mum. She was very overweight, she was very fat, and she was very ill as a result of it. And I saw all this going on from a very, very early age, and it was frightening me because they kept taking her away and threatening operations and all kinds of things. In those days, and again, remember I'm going back a long time here, in those days, operations for the thyroid, they discovered she had a thyroid condition, were very dangerous. And it literally was a life and death situation. And we were all very young, watching this going on, threats of operations, threats my mum could die. It was really horrible, really, you know, all sort of, probably for the first 8 years of my life. My mum thought that feeding us all up and giving us loads of food, probably as a result of the war years and the lack, was the way you loved children. And that worked for my brother and I, because we fast metabolism, but my sister isn't. And she got fatter and fatter and fatter. And I remember thinking, my God, I'm really embarrassed to go to school and these kids would come up to me when Laura was about 9, 10, and I'm just a year older than her. How comes your sister's so fat? She's a big fat girl and you're skinny. I didn't know what to say to my sister. I mean, she knew all about this. They were jibing and being horrible to her. You know how spiteful children can be. So I was feeling guilty about this. I was feeling guilty about the fact that my sister had been sent to a home when my mum was first ill, and my grandmother had looked after my brother and I, couldn't cope with my sister. She was sent off somewhere else. And then on top of this, there's all this stuff going on for her at home. And there was my mum still on the threat, until a doctor said to my mum, do you know what? If you do not lose this weight, Mrs. Wynne, you're going to die. And that did it. All right, she started to lose weight. And she became this tiny little person with this very, very neat little body that I'd never seen before. Didn't even recognise my own mum. And her first name was Dolly. And I have to say, she looked like a little dolly too. And it's really weird to see your mum go from like mega to tiny. Probably size 6, something like that, and very small in height, 4'11", I think. She had size 2.5 feet. Yeah. So that was that. Now, I have to go back to another time because it hasn't all been plain sailing for me. It sounds like my family were going through it. But when I was about 30, I had a nervous breakdown. And I don't want to go into too many details about that because it's really nasty stuff. And you lose your confidence and you lose your mind, actually, and your emotions are all over the place, become very frightened. And I was in such a state in the end, I actually developed agoraphobia and I couldn't go out for nearly a year. And that is something to live through. It's very scary. Yeah. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I eventually did manage to get myself out, and I attended yoga classes. And then, in those days then, it was very unusual. Yoga was seen as something weird, and if anybody had anything to do with it, you were the devil incarnate, you know. Churches were on your case. Heavy stuff. But that aside, I went to these classes, and what was really good about this, having had no confidence, I seemed to be good at this stuff. I could do these exercises. I could do the headstand, yeah? And the only reason I could do the headstand was because I turned up in a class full of men and they were all on their heads. And I thought, oh, I suppose I'm supposed to do this. So I just got on my head because it was like expected of you. Wasn't till later I found out that people take years to do this. Anyway, the people in the class, the other students, said, we think Molly's really good, we think she should train as a teacher. Oh, so I did. I trained as a yoga teacher, yeah, got really good at it, had classes all over London, and was really, really happy in that role. But what I wasn't realising, and this is really important for me to remember, during those periods of all that learning and raising the consciousness and spirituality and bringing in energies and meditation and the rest of it, I was actually opening up psychically. And it was happening bit by bit. And I was very emotional and very all over the place, and I actually thought it was the menopause. I was putting it down to the menopause, but it wasn't. I was opening psychically, and I could start to see things and know things about people. I didn't really want to tell anybody because I thought I was bonkers. And there wasn't anybody around I could even explain this to. You have to remember that I'd already been in and out of these day centres and hospitals for being a nutcase. So I wasn't going to open up and give them more ammunition, was I? So what happened was, the reason I'm telling you this is because this psychic stuff got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was more and more involved with it, and psychics and mediums and all these types of people that could channel and talk to spirit and other people over the other side, etc., started turning up in my life. My daughter couldn't handle it. She found it very difficult. At that time, she was with me and she was about 13. And I can see exactly why she did. And I started to see people going into what we call trance mediumship. So what happened to me was, one of these ladies came up to me, Judith, and she channeled. She said, somebody's coming in a couple of days' time. They're going to help you go through a major spiritual transformation. And I thought, what the hell is that when it's out, you know? I've had enough of all this. I've had years of all this mental stuff and emotion. What is a major spiritual transformation? She said, you'll find out on Thursday. And her name is Jane. Well, on Thursday, Jane turned up, bang on time, 8 o'clock. Yes, she said, come on, sit by the fire. We're going to go through this ceremony. She started doing all this stuff. And I was scared because I thought, I don't know what's going to happen. And I went into some kind of trance or relaxation or something or another. And then all of a sudden, all these visions and pictures and things and coming up left, right and centre out of my mind. And it was very, very frightening, absolutely frightening. And I don't know, because I don't remember what was going on, because, you know, when you're involved with this stuff, and it felt like I was shedding something from the past. Anyway, it went on all night. I think it's about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was completely exhausted the next morning and weird, in a state of odd. My boyfriend turned up about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was just not in this space at all. I was talking incoherently, and he said, I can't stand this, Molly. I can't be in this relationship with you. I'm off. And I have to say to everyone, I'm really, really glad he went, because I would not have been able to stand it. What happened to me next was I could not go out for 2 months. I couldn't stand light. I couldn't stand noise, I couldn't stand people, and I had to eat very little. And on the times I did venture out, I'd be very tired, and after walking about 100 yards, I had to sit on the curb until I had the energy to come back. It's extreme, isn't it? It is extreme. What I went through was extreme. But then what happened was I started to be able to see all these pictures about people, knew all the stuff about people. I didn't really want to use it. I was keeping it all on the dampers. So I studied hypnotherapy. And I thought, if I become a hypnotherapist, I can earn good money, but people might think I'm normal after all these years of being a little bit. Yeah. So I studied hypnosis, and I liked it because it was a fascinating concept of the mind. And then I started to have clients. And a friend of mine called Maggie said, I've got this guy who wants to come and see you, and he wants to have some hypnotherapy because he's very worried about a situation to do with fat inspectors. So Jimmy turned up in a big flashy car outside, and I wasn't used to this because I was thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to make all this money as a hypnotherapist. Yeah, bring it on, come in, Jimmy, sit down. And I asked him, I said, what's going on? So he said, well, I've heard you're a bit odd. I thought, oh, we're off to a good start, aren't we? I got used to this, people have been telling me I'm odd for years. Don't listen anymore because I have to trust my guts, yeah. So I heard that Jimmy was being chased by VAT inspectors and that he had a plot in Croydon where Marks and Spencer's wanted to take that plot and just spread their whole shop bigger. And he was in a mess. He was very frightened, and he got an appointment, a meeting with these 3 guys the next day, 3 inspectors on his case, pursuing him, and he felt persecuted. That's how he said. He said, I feel like I'm being punished for something, and I feel like I'm being persecuted. So I said, okay, what we'll do is I'll just do some hypnosis and get you relaxed for tomorrow's meeting. Now, I had no intention of ever saying anything to Jimmy about knowing that I could see things, because he was suited and booted. He was normal. He was mainstream, and I was going to wreck my reputation, was I, at that point, having gone through all that stuff. Anyway, he went into hypnosis, and very short while in, and remember I was a novice at this hypnotherapy, I was worried that he might jolt himself out all the time. I thought, oh, here we go. Here come the memories. I could see Jimmy in the playground with 3 boys, aged 9, all having a go at him, about to beat him up. And I said, Jimmy, I said, you know, I'm frightened to say anything in case he jolts out. Also frightened to say anything in case he thought, how does she know these things? Because you can think in hypnosis, you know, you're still thinking, but you don't bother to come out. Anyway, what happened was, I said, I repeated it, I said 9 playground, 3 bullies. And he started going like this. Jimmy started to go like this and shudder. I thought, oh, Molly, you're in trouble now, it's going to come out. Yeah, but he didn't. And he just had some kind of what they call in hypnosis, big word, abreaction. It means that you are releasing a memory in your unconscious mind from the past. Yeah, but that wasn't all, because I was receiving information about Jimmy going back to somewhere else in the past. And I knew from my own experience of all those past lives I'd gone through that night. So Jane told me 90 of them, 90 past life deaths. Can you even go there? That Jimmy was in past life. And I saw pictures clearly that he had hidden his money and he hadn't paid taxes. And I said to him, you know what, Jimmy, I think there might be a time, a long time ago, a very long time ago, we don't need to know where it was, where you didn't tell people that you didn't pay your tax. And I saw all this shuddering starting again. And I saw him get emotional. And I saw him actually cry, you know, the tears running down his face. I thought, gosh, my goodness me. And then he was calm. And I didn't get any more messages. I thought, good. Brought him out of hypnosis. And I said, how do you feel? He said, fine. Now you have to remember, before that, he was terrified of these VAT inspectors. And I said, tomorrow you're going to go and have this lunch with these people. How do you feel? He said, fine. I said, right. I said, you need to text me early in the morning, 7 o'clock, I don't mind. I need to know that you're still in good peace. Because remember that time I was very, very concerned, always sort of overdoing it with clients to make sure they were okay. Yeah. Anyway, he texted, he said, I'm fine. And I knew, I thought he's going to be fine. What's happened here that I don't understand, yeah? And he went and he had the meeting and they all dropped the case. And they said, no, £32,000 worth of VAT. Can you imagine? And they're dropping the case and they're backing off saying, fine, and they paid for his lunch. So, what do you think happened? Yes, word got around and I had all these guys coming round, all these suited and booted businessmen thinking, go and see Molly, it's all a bit weird. She might be saying some really peculiar things to you, but she'll get you off your VAT bill. Yeah. Not the best advertisement, but you know, the big cars were arriving. It was all very flashy, all very nice. And some years later, what was very amusing about this story is, and it's the one I'm telling you, not weight loss stories, is that my neighbours told me after I'd moved that the road, all the ladies in the road thought I was on the game. All these big cars arriving, can you imagine? Yeah. Anyway, I wasn't on the game and I was making shitloads of money, let you tell you. Yeah, they're all coming in. But now back to weight loss. Why haven't I given you an example of a woman with a weight loss story? The reason I haven't given you an example is because there are thousands of reasons, loads of them, and we could start off with the fact that your mum gave you a bottle last thing at night to fill you up to make sure you slept when you were a tiny, tiny little baby. So now what do? You stuff your face last thing at night. You're fine all day long, couldn't care less, and then it's set up certain time of the evening, the eating starts. And we also have to remember too, the other reasons are body addiction. Your body is addicted to certain foods at certain times of day. Yeah? And then we've got, obviously, most of the time, every lady I see has got a self-esteem problem somewhere. You can't see it, it's not obvious, but it's in there somewhere. Yeah? And it isn't normal, is it, to always be worried about your body, the way you look, concerned about people's opinion of you, to walk past a mirror, put yourself down all the time. It's horrible. Yeah? And we've already found out that diets don't work. It's pointless because it's not normal to not eat properly. It's not normal to have to drink stuff. Try that out for a week. I tried it and my body couldn't stand it and it wanted solid food. Yeah. So there are many, many reasons why a woman would be overweight. Maybe her mother made her eat too much. Maybe you were chastised for not eating all your food up because they're starving in Africa. The list goes on ad infinitum. Really, it does. Oh, maybe the first boyfriend you went out with had the audacity to tell you that you're a bit fat the first time you sleep with somebody. Let me tell you, that goes in. And a woman never gets over that one unless she does a clearing. So what happens if you have a session or you come on the weight loss program? What happens is the same thing that happened to Jimmy. You won't be interested in food. You won't be thinking about food, and the guys that helped me do the MP3 series, the Slimming Journey, they both gave up chocolate, but they don't even know why, and they're still not eating it. And I said, "You're eating chocolate?" They said, "No," but I didn't enlighten them with, why should I say anything? Yeah, it's because they'd heard the hypnosis and how much it worked. As I have mentioned, if you look at my website, you'll see there's a lot of information about weight loss, but I was the founder of the School of Psychic Studies in London, and so there are teachings about other subjects such as intuition, psychic development, Kabbalah, tarot, even ascension, lots of different subjects. But weight loss is my favourite because I want to make sure that you really get the benefit of finding out why you've got that weight and being able to do something about it instead of any more suffering on one more diet. So thank you very much for listening.